Welcome to Movies Redux. Today I'm going to explain a movie called Simple Passion, which unravels the clandestine affair between Helene and Alexandre in Paris, exploring the blurred lines between love and obsession as secrets unravel. Trust me, you don't want to miss this one. The movie commences with a woman gazing at a departing man, followed by her reflective narration about their initial encounter. The morning unfolds with intense intimacy between Helene and Alexandre, culminating in his departure as he, a captain of Russian embassy security, exits the room after fulfilling Helene's desires. Meanwhile, Helene observes her lover's departure, finding solace in her role as a widow and mother to a single child. Throughout the day, thoughts of Alexandre persistently intrude upon her mind, whether she's aboard a train or engrossed in a cinema screening. That evening, following a movie with her close friend Anita, Helene and Anita are seen entering a restaurant together. Despite Anita's frequent advice regarding Helene's involvement with the married Alexandre, Helene remains resolute. She dismisses Anita's concerns, even mentioning how Alexandre only reaches out when he needs intimacy and loving. Despite Anita's warnings and growing weariness of offering guidance, Helene insists on the depth of her feelings, professing her love for love itself. Helene recounts a particular instance when, amidst her work, Alexandre unexpectedly contacted her, prompting her to swiftly prioritize their meeting over her tasks. Despite Alexandre's tendency to disappear and his requests for Helene not to reach out while he's away, she eagerly awaits his return, undeterred by Anita's cautionary words. With a sense of determination, Helene carefully selects her attire, ensuring she presents herself as alluring as possible for her lover. She meticulously arranges her hair, aiming to captivate Alexandre upon his arrival. Anxious anticipation consumes Helene as she awaits him. Upon his arrival, he wastes no time, swiftly pressing her against the wall and then laying her on a nearby work table. Following their brief encounter, Alexandre departs abruptly, leaving Helene to gather her scattered clothes and reflect with a melancholic expression. Despite returning to her academic duties, thoughts of Alexandre persist, prompting her to search for him online, where she is met with a bittersweet reminder of his marital status as she gazes at a photo of him with his wife. Amidst her literature class at the university, Helen, a professor, received an urgent call from Alexandre, prompting her to abruptly conclude the session and rush home. Upon her arrival, she finds the striking Alexandre staring out of the window, expressing his fervent drive to see her, mentioning he drove there in haste. Blushing, Helene poured wine to enhance the ambiance of their romantic encounter. However, it became evident that Alexandre's presence was solely for physical intimacy, as per usual. After their intimacy, Helene presented Alexandre with a gift of new clothes and a note, urging him to read it later. Alexandre graciously accepted, complimenting Helene's thoughtfulness. Yet, as he sat in his car, unwrapping the gift and reading the note expressing, "I think of you every day," his expression betrayed a mix of emotions. There was a noticeable absence of joy in Alexandre's demeanor. On one occasion, they found themselves reclining on the bed, prompting Helene to inquire about Alexandre's acceptance at the embassy despite his past as a tattooed ex-convict. Alexandre attempted to provide an explanation, interjecting with playful remarks about his good looks aiding his acceptance. However, when he informed Helene of his impending departure with his wife for several weeks, her expression turned sorrowful, hinting at a fear of losing him indefinitely. Since then, Helene's countenance has been marked by a perpetual sadness, an unfulfilled longing lingering within her. At times, she yearned to reach out to Alexandre. However, she consistently restrained herself, unwilling to cause any trouble for Alexandre with his wife. On a particular day, feeling the need to uplift her spirits, Helene impulsively decided to take a trip to Florence and invited her son, Paul, to join her. despite his initial reluctance due to school commitments. Undeterred, Hélène resolved to seek permission from the school for Paul's absence. Despite being on vacation, Hélène found it challenging to divert her thoughts from Alexandre. In an attempt to find solace and guidance, she visited a church in Florence where she tearfully prayed about her relationship with Alexandre. There, she caught the attention of a compassionate stranger who offered her comfort. The stranger suggested that Hélène make 3 requests to God, assuring her that one of them was likely to be granted. Naturally, all 3 requests pertained to Alexandre. Despite several weeks passing without any communication from him, while Hélène was in the midst of teaching her students, Alexandre finally reached out. Without hesitation, she halted the lesson and excused the class. Hastening her departure, Hélène encountered a homeless person on the street and spontaneously offered some of her money, interpreting Alexandre's call as a sign of divine intervention. Seated together in the car, Hélène joyfully recorded their intimate moment on her phone, capturing Alexandre's tender gestures as he caressed her body. However, following an intimate encounter at the hotel, Hélène and Alexandre found themselves embroiled in a brief disagreement when Alexandre expressed disapproval of Hélène's choice to wear a tight and short skirt. "Girls never learn, do they?" Anywho, he expressed concern that her choice of attire might draw unwanted attention to her rear. On another occasion, Hélène inquired about Alexandre's address in Russia, to which he disclosed his residence on Tverskaya in the city center. After a tender embrace and a kiss, Alexandre departed. However, during their subsequent meeting, Alexandre confessed to having frequent intimate encounters with his wife. When Hélène asked if his wife evoked similar arousal in him, Alexandre sidestepped the question and advised Hélène not to contact him for the next few days, as he would be with his wife. Hélène was visibly angered by Alexandre's dismissive attitude, but he remained indifferent to her emotions. Seeking solace, Hélène confided in her friend Anita about the situation. Anita wasted no time in cautioning Hélène against getting her hopes up, predicting that Alexandre would eventually return to Russia without a word. This revelation seemed to dawn on Hélène, prompting her to make a resolute decision to end her relationship with Alexandre. However, she found the process more challenging than anticipated. Despite her son Paul's excitement about his soccer practice and his invitation for her to attend his game, Hélène declined, citing the need to conduct research. In truth, Hélène was preoccupied with anticipation of news from Alexandre, causing her to become distracted and nearly collide with her own son. Hastening home, Hélène was caught off guard when Alexandre unexpectedly arrived without prior notice. Uncertain and hesitant, Hélène attempted to resist Alexandre's presence by refraining from opening the door. Having promised to prioritize research for Paul's upcoming match, Hélène's decision seemed to upset Alexandre, prompting him to leave in apparent anger. Yet conflicted by her emotions, Hélène quickly relented, opening the door and summoning Alexandre back to engage in intimacy. From that moment, Hélène's infatuation with Alexandre intensified, driving her to pursue him relentlessly. Despite the lack of response from Alexandre, Hélène took the initiative to reach out to him repeatedly. With Alexandre ceasing communication, Hélène resorted to visiting the Russian consulate in hopes of encountering him, but to no avail. Undeterred, she often lingered around the consulate, desperate to confirm Alexandre's presence. After another call to the Russian consulate, Hélène learned that Alexandre had returned to Moscow. Overwhelmed by deep disappointment, sadness, and confusion, Hélène was struck by an immense blow that led to her falling ill. During her illness, Paul stepped up, taking on the responsibility of preparing meals and ensuring Hélène received the necessary medication for her recovery. One morning, Hélène's ex-husband unexpectedly visited their home and was shocked to observe Paul's neglected state. He also noticed an abundance of antidepressant medications around Hélène. It was then revealed that Paul had contacted his father, disclosing that for 2 weeks he had been shouldering all responsibilities alone and expressing concern about an incident where Helene had nearly hit him, despite the need for Helene to acknowledge her condition and errors. She instead grew increasingly irritated, consumed by her obsession with Alexandre. Witnessing his wife's distressing state, her ex-husband decided to take Paul with him. Helene remained silent, but erupted into a fit of rage, hurling her phone as her attempts to reach Alexandre proved futile. She resolved to wait outside the consulate office all day, hoping to encounter Alexandre. However, the pain deepened when she finally spotted him, only to have him feign ignorance of her presence. This further intensified her sadness and depression. Seeking respite, Helene sought permission from her supervisor to take leave, intending to calm herself and attend her child's soccer match. However, driven by impulse, she impulsively flew to Russia, though she held little hope of meeting Alexandre. Lost and desperate, she wandered the streets of Tverskaya, clinging to the consulate office address as her only clue. Eventually, overwhelmed with despair, Helene made the decision to return to Paris, her spirit utterly shattered. 8 months later, she is depicted happily watching Paul play football, seemingly having reclaimed her lost sense of life. One evening, Helene is taken aback by a sudden phone call from Alexandre, announcing his arrival. Overwhelmed with a mix of confusion, shock, and happiness, she swiftly arranges for Paul to stay at a friend's house so she can have a private night with Alexandre. Shortly thereafter, Alexandre arrives, and they eagerly indulge in their long-restrained desires. However, it soon becomes apparent that Alexandre's visit is solely to inform Helene of his transfer to another country. In a poignant moment, Helene accompanies Alexandre to the hotel. It's in this emotional moment that Alexandre affectionately addresses Helene with a term of endearment for the first time before bidding her farewell. And with that, our film comes to a close. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more recaps. Your support means the world to us. Feel free to drop any comments or suggestions below. Until next time, take care and stay awesome.